giving tips. That's tips for short. And I'm joined this morning with Dominique, Michael, and Wuchle in our team. I'll do a proper introduction to the team. But what we are doing today is really to set the scene and introduce you to a project, a research project. So the work that we're doing is based on funding that we've received from a fund on international energy PI and the international platform hosted at the Stitching European Climate Foundation. So it's the ECF fund, and we're looking at SMMEs in the just transition, and the objective is really to foster greater participation. So in doing so today, we've prepared a program. This is essentially a per invitation focus group. We did initially lay out an hour and a half for the discussion, but we'd like to extend it with another half an hour to give the entrepreneurs in the room and the other stakeholders from government and also incubators and policymakers and other researchers the opportunity to really voice their concerns regarding green business barriers and also to come up with some recommendations for policy considerations. So we will be having a very interactive whiteboard session by 11:30, and I'll give you a little bit more details later on. But we'll do a quick welcome introduction and overview, and then that will be followed by a few stakeholder presentations. We've invited a few key people in the ecosystem within energy and the energy sector, specifically looking at renewables and also energy efficiency. Then we've also invited a couple of SMMEs. We really would love to hear from their voices. We focused on youth entrepreneur, people with disabilities, youth entrepreneurs, that's also Black owned and female owned. And we've got one really incredible local technology entrepreneur that will also be talking about the technology development challenges. So the idea really for the people in the room today is to make it really inclusive. We want to understand what entrepreneurs are actually perceiving as opportunities within the just transition, but also what is the business barriers, point number 5, that is still hindering these businesses from, first of all, just staying in the sector, not dying off early, and then also for some of them that are starting to realize a little bit of scale. What is the barriers to the scale, to the next stage of their business cycle? And the idea is really that we would be summarizing these discussions from the focus group today, and we're going to input that into a policy brief for policy recommendations and considerations. We're working very closely with the Department of Small Business as a collaborator, but not a funding partner, but very closely to help them to understand how to navigate the space and how to make provision for greater SME inclusion in the sector. We're hoping by the end of our project, which would be by July, the 31st of July at the CHIPS Forum, we would be able to present some of our findings. So we've got a couple of few months to go still, and we will also having another focus group session on water and then waste sector in the next few months that we invited some stakeholders. So then we'll wrap up. But just to introduce the project team. This is Elise Harting. I'll switch my camera on now, but just for the internet stability, I thought maybe let me just start off without the camera. Would be me just to make sure I'm still audible. I just heard a little drop on my internet. Wuchle, can you confirm?
You are audible.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes.
So the outcomes, just to summarize, we've got 4 key outcomes. We want to identify opportunities for SMEs in the energy sector, and we want to make sure that it is really for everybody. We want nobody to be left alone. So we're focusing on youth-owned, female-owned, people with disabilities, and Black-owned entrepreneurs. And we are also focusing on all business cycles. So we're looking at ideation to a very early startup and to technology setup entrepreneurs who's really just looking at formalizing their technology and getting it into the market. We're also looking at startups that are maybe in local manufacturing to the bigger scale entrepreneurs, but the focus really is on SMMEs, but also more MSMEs. And then we are looking at unpacking green business barriers. We really want to walk away from this workshop today to really get a firm understanding what is holding back these entrepreneurs from participating in the energy sector and what is standing in their way to grow as entrepreneurs. And we want to then put forward the policy recommendations and interventions for consideration at the national strategic level. But we're also hoping to foster some collaboration across the stakeholders in the room today for all of you to get to know each other and to understand that we are part of an ecosystem and foster new relationships that can build the industry. All right, so I'll briefly just go over the opportunities in this session. We've looked at renewables and energy efficiency. So for everybody in the room today, if you are quite eager to speak about waste and water and climate smart agriculture and those sectors, please note that we will get to those opportunities in the next few months, and you can contact me for those discussions. But we really would like to take the opportunity today to dig very deeply into renewables and energy efficiency only. If there is waste to energy businesses, very welcome, but also within obviously the electrical vehicle space, batteries, all of those. So just to give you a kind of a sense of the opportunities, we've taken about 3 months now to do a desktop search, and we've documented through various resources to look at what opportunities are presented. And these are the kind of hot things in the industry that came up that I'll quickly mention. Solar installation, sales and distribution, energy trading, power grid designing, power pumping systems, wind energy, more from the maintenance side, not so much on the manufacturing, but there is some installation and components and servicing. Biofuel production, solar refrigeration systems, repair, maintenance services, solar water heating systems, more on the manufacturing side, then electrical vehicles, energy auditor, consulting, and research and product development. So this is like a whole mouthful, but just to give you a sense that we've really wanted to focus on everybody in the value chain. We wanted to look at where is there consulting opportunities, where is there manufacturing opportunities, where is there servicing and distribution and sales, and then also maintenance. So that's the kind of entrepreneurs that's in the room. And I will now also then we will talk about the business barriers, internal and external. But just before we go in here, I'd like to just stop and give the opportunity in the room for more engagement. So let me just go back to the room. I would like to maybe just first of all ask some of the stakeholders in the room just to introduce themselves and also for them to just say what the initiatives are that they're involved in. So if I could maybe just first call Billy from CEDA. Billy, would you be able to introduce yourself and just let us know a little bit about what CEDA is doing in the sector to support entrepreneurs in green businesses, especially in the energy sector? And maybe if, Billy, there's a few glaring challenges that you've come across, you're welcome to mention them. And then after Billy, I would like to also welcome Winnie from DMRE if she's in the room. I can see the autopilot, but then Winnie, after Billy, then I'd like to also welcome you. And then we also have the Just SA team. I'd like them to also just say who they are and what they're doing. And then after that, I'm going to be calling the NBI team. Thank you so much. Over to you, Billy, if you're ready for us.
Thank you, Elise. I don't know, this is the part where I do the presentation or this is just
very welcome. Okay. Over to you, Billy.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Colleagues, let me put on my camera for a bit. I hope you can see me. That is myself. I'm Billy Bukako. I am the senior manager responsible for incubation at CEDA. I am with my colleague here, Kabelo Likalakala, who is the sector lead for the green economy within the incubation team unit. Maybe Kabelo, you can show your face because I'm sure you'll be more key to these engagements than I am or I will be in the future. Colleagues, we have prepared a presentation. Let's see. Okay, let me just switch off my camera. We've prepared a very short presentation on the stand of, CEDA in, the green economy sector, also in terms of, the work that we're doing in the space, which is actually, you will see, is actually not a lot of work. But obviously, with some of the initiatives that we're putting in place, we're hoping, which have showed us, where we lack as an organization in terms of the sectors that we service. We're hoping that obviously this will lead to us engaging more and, trying to put out more programs within the space because, the green economy is a way of living. Yes, we talk about it as a sector, but there's a lot of, benefit that, could go through all the other sectors that we represent or service from just the green economy principles and philosophies. So without wasting any further time, colleagues, I don't know if you can see, somebody can just confirm if you see my presentation. And
hi, Billy. Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I just wanted to start a little bit about, what is the CEDA Technology Program for any people that might not know who we are. So the CEDA Technology Program came to CEDA in 2006 on the 1st of April from the DTI, now the TTIC. And it was a special ring-fenced program that focuses on consolidating the national strategies and rationalizing, all the strategies that have to do with support interventions that are aimed towards SMMEs. And this was aimed at mostly, looking at government departments and agencies. So it has since now come to CEDA, and some of the responsibilities of the program or the role of the program is to increase accessibility and the utility of technologies and management of support through structured platforms such as technology business centers to facilitate the acquisition of the transfer of technologies to SMMEs, promoting the use of quality and standards. So my colleagues, you look after incubation. We've got Marilyn Pele, who is the senior manager responsible for quality standards and tech transfer. So entrepreneurs are able to, access support and quality standards through her unit. And also, some interventions around performance and productivity, and also to improve competitiveness, promote entrepreneurial activities, and, all of this we do just to reduce the rate, the failure rate of SMMEs. So the next slide talks to the different classification of incubators at CEDA, right? We've got sector-specific incubators. I'm going to talk about one of them, which falls under the green economy sector. We have got incubators in agriculture, automotive. We have got, I think, about 15 sectors where we have, incubation centers focusing on. We also have what we call centers for entrepreneurship or centers for entrepreneurship and rapid incubation, depending on where they are. Mostly the ones that are associated with universities would call themselves CFEs, and those associated with TVET colleges would then be called CFEREs. So these are centers, as I've just said, that are linked to institutions of higher learning. We've got quite a couple of those. And then we have what we call digital hubs. These are centers that focus on the 4IR verticals. They focus on ICT, advanced manufacturing, and all of that. And most of them are actually located in the townships. So these are the three types of incubators that we have. And I thought also, as a matter of interest, just to show the geographical distribution of our incubators, the current cohort. We have about 110 incubators currently, and we are in the process of establishing an additional 12 incubators, one of them has launched already. Some, should be ready during the course of this year. And what I wanted to highlight with this slide also is the fact of is how scant or how little, activity we have in the space of green economy. We've got, the biofuels business incubator, which we'll be talking a little bit about as part of this presentation, using it as a case study maybe, that is situated in Limpopo. And we also have Sarebi, which is in the Western Cape. And if I am not mistaken, I think I saw one of our colleagues from Sarebi, Stefan. Hi, Stefan. So these are the only two, incubators that we have in our portfolio. There is a little bit of focus if you look at some of the CIFREs. I know Bembe is preparing for the production of, solar panels and, working into that space. We've also gotten into a partnership recently with the National Business Initiative that focuses on the install, repair, and maintenance program, mostly targeting TVET colleges to shorten the time for qualifications, but also to augment the skill sets that apply to the green economy space. Okay, I'm just going to skip this one. I'm sorry, colleagues. I've had to open two screens because the screen that we're presenting on is a little bit too small for me to see. But basically, I want to talk a little bit about the Biofuels Business Incubator. It's one of our incubators that's in Limpopo, and they incubate, they focus on incubating SMMEs that are in the production of biofuels, right? So it makes provision for, biofuel businesses through looking at, the whole entire production value chain of biofuels. And it also makes provision for SMMEs that are in the farming sector. So those that, produce oilseeds and other crops that, become a biomass or input into the production of biofuels. And some of the business processes that they look at is mechanization, beekeeping for sunflower production, the beneficiation of the byproducts that come from the process, where they produce glycerine, they make candles and fertilizer. So there are more opportunities for SMMEs in green economy, mainly from the rural, because most of the SMMEs that are associated with the incubator come from, the rural and peri-urban dwellings, and which is why you also see quite a strong focus in the farming activities. There's also emphasis that is placed mainly on women and in youth, and you'll see in the next slide how that demography looks. And currently they're also running projects with the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development and SANEDI. BBI has about all of the SMMEs are actually Black owned, and about 47 of them, are women owned, not Black owned, as is written here. Sorry about that. And they have a total of about 30 incubatees, right, in their cohort. Some of the highlights from the incubatees, they've got companies such as AR Global Holdings, which acquired approval for the collection of cooking oil, which is a very big issue. And I've put this on as a highlight because it's a very big issue in anyone who is in biofuel production. The issue of, securing inputs. It's a highly competitive space, and it could be the make or break of any business if you cannot get those inputs. Tala Consortium received assistance in developing procedures, which is also quite an important thing if you also look at, the standards and the regulatory environment around biodiesel production. They've also, received some plant and equipment through funding from the NYDA. Okay, next slide. So some of the challenges actually that I wanted to touch on with BBI is around BBI is to date the only biofuels incubator in the country that is supported by us, obviously. And yet there is still quite a great struggle for them to get the necessary support, from government, right, on a lot of things. And as I said earlier on, that, the inputs being, the biggest problem to date. So the demand also, I mean, we look at the demand of biofuels, it far exceeds the current supply that we have in the country, or even the current capacity that we have. We had a meeting recently with Sasol, who was also looking at, pilot production of, biodiesel for blending. And we have since, introduced them to BBI to assist to get the ball rolling on that pilot, and hopefully, assist the incubator. Also, I mean, one of the things that are crippling in our businesses, most of our businesses, is load shedding. And I mean, this is across all types of businesses that we have, all types of incubators that we have. The biggest issue has always been load shedding. And BBI has also confirmed that, the, production has since gone down since the start of load shedding, right? There's also the issue of, capital. We can't run away from the fact that, it's one of the biggest barriers to entry, especially in the green economy space at large, right? Where, the cost of starting is actually quite high. And I mean, we rationalize as we go along and perhaps look at the ROI, but, it still is a barrier if you don't have the capital to start. And also, a lot of the funding in the green finance space, and Elise, you and I have had the conversation around this. It's really difficult to get any funding, especially right at the beginning. And most of the technology incubators, there's more appetite once you have proof of concept or even in operation. But right in the beginning, it's really difficult. And there's also a perceived lack of, local technology development support. As much as we had been talking about, biofuels for a very long time, but the industry is still quite stagnant. And, it can be perceived as, being in infant stage, and also, where there is very little, very few experienced workforce. Again, I stress the point of, the biggest barrier being, securing inputs, especially if you talk about used cooking oil, which is, the most common input. A very highly competitive space to secure that. Okay, next slide. Let's see. And some of the generic barriers to entry that we can, talk about, it's, the issue around legislation. The biofuel industry is growing at snail pace, and because there's also legislative, inefficiencies. I mean, the Department of Energy has not finalized to date the regulatory framework that guides the production of biofuels. And I mean, that's the last time we checked. We haven't heard of any developments around that. And that is a huge barrier, because you would understand that if policy is not supporting any of our activities, we might as well stop, because I mean, it creates a conducive environment for collaboration. It also, informs us in terms of where to go and how to unveil and take, charge of opportunities that come. Also, the biggest one, in some countries, biofuels, they would use inputs such as food crops, sunflower, maize, sugarcane, canola, sugar beet. But in South Africa, we've got a very big debate of food versus fuel, right? We are a country that is mostly driven by, food security. As such, we've got very limited inputs or biomass that we can use, and hence the issue around cooking oil becomes, a relevant debate to be had when talking about issues of inputs. CEDA way forward. This is a very brief and very little, very small presentation that we're making today, because we do realize, the how scant our contribution currently is as CEDA incubation, that is, right, in the green economy space. And what we have since done, as part of this financial year, our board has approved our strategy of looking into economic clusters. And Kabelo is the cluster lead for, the green economy. And through this exercise, we have been able to see where are the gaps in our, portfolio, and which economic sectors need our attention. And, also looking at issues of, value chain incubation as well, as opposed to, economic sector incubation, as we currently are focusing. So there's a big drive for us to, strengthen our portfolio. And we will be collaborating with, yourself, Elise, and other players in the value chain and in the ecosystem to, to try and bring about programs that can assist us with that. Also, we're also looking at programs to assist with curbing load shedding. We had started last year with the DSPD, but unfortunately that, sort of dragged a little bit, and we're trying to see how we can use, for instance, your Sarebis, some of the incubatees within, that incubator, how they can come about with these solutions to curb load shedding, and how we can, promote those on a larger scale within our entire cohort. And also part of what we're trying to do, the Department of Small Business Development in June launched the Enterprise Supply Development Community of Practice, which I'm part of, as a way of formalizing the ESD community. And there's a lot of interesting, work that is being undertaken as part of that community of practice. And we are looking at, obviously, from where we are sitting as incubation, we're looking at opportunities, ESD opportunities that we can, leverage for our incubators. So as part of that, we'll also be looking at, partnering some of our green economy companies with some of those opportunities. And also, and in general, just to promote the sustainable practices within all our businesses. Because as we understand, green economy is a green philosophy. It's a way of doing things. Yes, it is a sector, but it really is a way of doing things. And we want to promote that as part of, the current set, as within the current sector center cohort. I think that is around about it, Elise. I am happy to take any questions. I am a little bit rusted, when it comes to green economy. I've, had to focus on a lot more other work since joining CEDA, but I'm happy to take any questions and inputs and any suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that, Billy. It's a fantastic way for that you've been setting the scene for us, and yeah, really appreciate all the insights from especially the biofuel perspective. And it really looks like there's a huge like new fire, from CEDA's side to actually support entrepreneurs in green sectors. And we also very mindful that we are actually in a just transition. At the end of the day, we are emerging. And the focus here is also to say, we have this dream and this vision of building a low carbon economy for South Africa, but that comes with a set of challenges. And in these emerging times, building new industries, it's really important the role that CEDA has for both financial and non-financial support, and also how you're building the incubator ecosystem to respond to market demands. So really thanks for all the rich insights. And I think if you don't mind, we will do a few Q&As maybe later in the session.
Sure.
I just kind of want to give everybody kind of an idea of who's in the room. And yeah, maybe for now it's a good idea to ask if the Department of Minerals and Energy is Winnie. I see your autopilot is here, but I've not been able to see. Maybe there's a different representative from DMRE. If not, and you might be joining a bit later, not a problem. Let me just give it a chance. I don't see Elizabeth here. Maybe they just in a meeting. I know the Department of Small Business sent their apologies. I'm working very closely with Mzo, and he's got a whole team looking at sectoral development, and within the Department of Small Business, they still see green economy as a sector, so not necessarily, you know, that they're also trying to restructure and really look at how they can see it as more of a transitioning and green within all the sectors. But they're not here today because they're in a very important strategy session. So apologies for that, but we will convey all our findings to them in a report, and everybody in the room will also get a copy of our findings today. So maybe now, since we've been talking about incubators and there's no hierarchy in the room, maybe Helmut, if you or Stefan from Sarebi, it just seems fitting to bring another incubator in here just to introduce. I also know Sarebi quite well, but I'd like to see from 2016, you know, how Sarebi is also actually, you know, evolved as an incubator, as a business in terms of supporting a very constrained Western Cape footprint in the beginning, but now have a more national footprint of support. That's fantastic because there's been a huge demand, but also virtual support, which is now offering a lot more back office support to a wide variety of entrepreneurs. So over to you, Helmut, and thank you very much for joining on such a short notice. I always draw from your inputs, and I really appreciate you being here with us today. So over to you.
Hi. Yes, to everybody in the room, and we know a number of the people. I think in a way, the challenges that BBI face is not completely unique, and to a large extent, Sarebi has faced similar challenges, and we've very specifically navigated into sort of a different aspect of incubation because of that. So I know for a fact that a large part of the challenge with a number of incubators are that we're trying to work with artisans or people in a very practical sort of environment, and very often the aspirant or would-be entrepreneurs lack the technical or vocational skills to really play in that space. And this is there's an international statistic that says people who come from 10 or 15 years experience in a particular job and then starts up a business in that sort of same financial activity or economic activity often have a better chance of building a successful business than people who come fresh out of varsity or something, unless you've got a ton of money and some really high-tech ideas. So that is a definite challenge in the broader ecosystem, broader enterprise development ecosystem. From that perspective, and we've started off a number of years ago where we built what was called a manufacturing technology center, specifically looking at how we support small and micro manufacturers in the clean tech sector. We've realized that it would require a completely different business model and a completely different funding model for it to work in the first place. And the other challenge is that the scope of work that we tackled was just too large for the what do you call it, the capacity we had. To try and run a vocational training center as well as a business incubator in one value chain becomes a really, really difficult business case. And we've, for that simple reason, realized that it is imperative that we sort of focus on one of the two areas. There are a couple other small issues, localized issues, which I think drove part of our strategy. And one of it is that we were all hoping that the SEZ in Atlantis would have come to fruition, come to trading, come to operation much faster than it has. So that's taken quite a long time for it to happen. And obviously, if you're based 50, 60 kilometers from your main economic hub or your downtown in town, and people need to drive, and Elise, you can tell us how long you drove to Sarebi in those days. It took 2-3 hours in the morning and 2-3 hours.
4.5 hours, 180 kilometers to get to work.
Exactly. It's just people don't want to work there. People don't want to come and incubate there. You've got to really think very carefully. You can't simply just say, build it and the people will come, because there are so many other alternatives. And Cape Town, just like Gauteng, areas in Gauteng, if you drive between Somerset West and Atlantis, and you go through Cape Town, there are 1 of 100 brake presses sitting in a factory that is for rent on an hourly basis somewhere along that road. And Gauteng, you've got the same situation. If you drive between Pretoria and Boksburg, there are 1 of 100 factories that is happily selling sometime on an idle brake press or an idle CNC punch. You know, so it's really important to understand all of these market dynamics before you simply just go and build a technology center. You really need to think through the business case quite carefully, and the value proposition, and is there really truly a value proposition? Location, as in retail, is critically important with incubators. Young entrepreneurs do not want to spend hours in a car or in a bus or in a train to go and sit and work at a place far away. So those are all sort of part of the learning lessons, the things we've learned and where we've gone. And that has resulted in us focusing more on providing back-end operational support, back office support for entrepreneurs. We've also learned that the bulk of your entrepreneurs in the IRM space, that install, repair, maintain, technical, vocational space, come out of school, out of a TVET college, out of a varsity, and know nothing about accounting, know nothing about governance, tax, how to process payrolls, how to do a digital marketing campaign, how to properly work with data, how to implement productivity tools like Google, like ERPs, various different things. So for us and the cohort that we tend to work with and that we like to work with, the back office support is a critically important component. And I think right through the entire enterprise development space, we've come to realize that that is what helps potentially help you drive the efficiency, the productivity that drives profitability, drives sustainability. And if you go back to Billy's very first slide, one of CEDA's objectives is exactly that, helping to build sustainable entrepreneurs, helping to build efficiency, helping to build productivity. So that is why we're doing what we're doing at this point in time. Is very, very narrow, not narrowly, but sort of very specifically focused around working with people, creating a foundation and a basis of systems, process, procedure, operational efficiency, and then from there we drive marketing and sales and a variety of different activities that then helps them increase productivity, efficiency, and ultimately our view is that if we support entrepreneurs long enough with the right activity and their productivity increase, their profitability increase, they are going to need extra hands on deck, and that is where job creation comes from. That's sort of Elise, is that what you knew, what you wanted?
Yes, absolutely, Ahmed. I think just to give us the reality of what you are dealing with as an incubator and what you're seeing across your cohorts over a number of years, but also how you had to adapt with the needs of the entrepreneur, for me is really wonderful that you are able to rapidly respond to that. Because at the end of the day, within the just transition context, again, we're building bankable businesses. We kind of in a finishing school where we're helping the emerging entrepreneurs to become stronger and more confident in the market. And obviously there's entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs. Small businesses have small business challenges. But then when you put the green angle and then the renewable energy sector, hat onto a certain component of them, they come with their own set of barriers. It's still an emerging market, although it's booming and there's lots of investments. So maybe later on within our whiteboard breakaway sessions, I can ask maybe Stefan and Ahmed if you still have some time, but we're going to go more into the nitty gritty of what you're seeing in your cohort regarding the internal and external barriers, a bit more specific. The forces that's within the control of the entrepreneur and not in control, and maybe I think your value in this session would really be around the recommendations. We putting our heads together and see what kind of mechanisms from a policy perspective could be recommended to the Department of Small Business to say, how can we ease, doing business in the sector for the emerging market? How can we kind of remove the red tape and a bit of the bureaucracy and the constraints, just to lighten it up? And I also want to just circle back to what Billy was saying. Billy, thank you for reminding me around the game changer initiatives that the Department of Small Business initiated last year. I was also part of supporting them with a switch on green fund. We were looking at about 60 million euros. It's about 400 million for a blended finance component to support 8,000 emerging entrepreneurs in green sectors. But those initiatives are a little bit on the back at the moment. They are lagging a bit, but we are hoping to also see some more insights that we can integrate into our report around what different IDCs and DTIC and National Treasury and Department of Small Business are doing within the access to finance and access to capital for solar relief, the energy crisis. So we'll bring in some of those dimensions. But really, thank you, Ahmed. We really are grateful to see Sarebi as a very cutting edge incubator, being able to extend your services virtually and with a national footprint to make our entrepreneurs a bit stronger. So we'll lean back onto your insights a bit later, but now maybe I can also ask the Just SA team. So this is a team that is also sitting within TIPS. Iya, if you want to maybe introduce your team and just share with us very briefly, not all the work packages that we presented yesterday, but maybe just more kind of your interest in why you are in the session, what you see within the just transition context is important for SMMEs. That would be super helpful. Over to you, Ian. Thanks.
Thanks, Elise. Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Ian Stewart. Good morning, everyone. I'm the lead for the TIPS component of a project called Just SA, and I think one of my colleagues is here as well in the group, Simba Maka. He is one of our researchers, economists, working with me on Just SA. So I'm going to give you a short presentation of the program, and it's not going to be as long as the presentation I gave yesterday, Elise, so don't worry, it's a shortened version. But I just want to give you an overview of the project and what we are doing and what the other implementing partners on Just SA are doing. So let me share the presentation. Okay, great. Right, so Just SA stands for Just Transition to a Decarbonized Economy for South Africa. And the objective of the program is that basically the project supports the implementation of pathways towards an environmentally sustainable, climate change resilient and low carbon economy and just society. The political partner for Just SA is the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. We are part of a consortium of implementing partners headed by GIZ, but also including Green Cape, NBI, WWF, and Yes for Youth. The Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency is another important project partner on Just SA, because a lot of the work, as I will explain in a moment, is focused on Mpumalanga. So Just SA is roughly a 4-year project. Our implementation period, if you will, is 47 months. The money is coming from the International Climate Initiative, and the overall contract is due to end in August 2027. The value of the project is about 15 million euros, so is 15 million euros, about 300 million rand. And the TIPS grant, so of that 15 million euros, we are receiving a grant of 2.5 million euros, or 50 million rand. To do the sort of activities that we have signed up to do. So the program operates on a number of levels: national, regional, and local. So at the national level, the project supports the implementation of the PCC's Just Transition Framework, as well as the development of financial instruments to fund the Just Transition, to fund Just Transition investments and projects. At the regional level, the project is going to be focusing on Mpumalanga province and supporting the provincial government of Mpumalanga to formulate a concrete, sustainable and just green economy transition plan for a diversified regional economy. And as I mentioned, this includes quite a bit of support to the Green Cluster Agency. And then at the local level, the project supports local municipalities within Mpumalanga, so selected local municipalities in the province, to implement and scale up just and green economy projects. As well as that, the project will also address the issue of mine rehabilitation, with a focus on mine water treatment through research, policy implementation, and community engagement. So if you have a look at the impact outcome outputs and the sub-outputs, if you work from the bottom up, there are basically almost 20 work packages consisting of 67 activities across all implementing partners, across the whole consortium. There are 4 outputs. The outputs in bold are the outputs that we as TIPS are partially responsible for achieving. The first output being that a common vision among relevant stakeholders on the pathways to achieve a just transition exists. And then the other output is that concrete alternative development pathways are developed for Mpumalanga. This will hopefully lead to the outcome, which is the implementation of pathways towards a just transition to a low carbon economy and a climate resilient society. And then the impact is that structural change to a decarbonized economy in South Africa has made considerable progress. So it's quite a big project. There are lots of moving parts. At the moment, we're all moving at different speeds, but we are certainly starting on our activities. If you look at the work packages and the activities that TIPS is responsible for under Output 1, you'll see that we will be doing a series of capacity building events on the green economy and the just transition. We will be implementing a just transition community of practice. We will be conducting research at the national level, sort of policy focused research on the just transition. And we'll also be providing support into selected national processes. The other main stream of work under Output 1 is all to do with just transition financing, so developing knowledge products to support and enable the implementation and financing of the just transition framework. The first activity that we will be doing is basically building a pipeline for just transition projects, a just transition project pipeline. We will be updating and improving and expanding South Africa's ability to identify what counts as a just transition investment. So we will be taking some work that we've done previously on a just transition financing framework, and we will be continuing that in Just SA. So looking at what counts as a just transition project or transaction, and thereby trying to kind of increase flows of just transition financing to where it's needed. And then the final activity of this particular work stream is to support the development of innovative financial instruments and mechanisms that are fit for purpose to meet just transition project needs in the South African context. And then if you look at output 2, we are basically responsible for providing research and organizing social dialogue sessions around green and inclusive industrialization in Mpumalanga. And I think it's here where our work intersects the most with your work, Elise, on small businesses and the green economy. So we are going to be starting as a research program very shortly on looking at options for green and inclusive industrialization in Mpumalanga province, and we will almost certainly be looking at sort of entry points for small businesses as part of that study. And then a final activity there is basically to support existing initiatives on the just transition in Mpumalanga. So if you summarize all of that, these are the core activities that TIPS will be doing under Just SA. It's important to remember that it's not just us that's involved in this project, but we are one of a number of implementing partners who will be working with us. So I think at the municipal level is probably where most of the work will be done with small businesses in those selected municipalities in Mpumalanga, but that's not something that we as TIPS will be focusing on. So we are focusing much more on the national level and the regional level. And then, as I said, I think some of the research that we're doing, the regional study where we will be looking at opportunities for green and inclusive industrialization are very relevant here, and then potentially also the sort of the national just transition policy focused studies, so looking at what sort of policies are most suitable for vulnerable or at risk groups as we go through the transition. And I think I'll leave it there. I just want to add that there are some general indicators that are probably worth mentioning. So if I can, so let me just say that there are some standard indicators that this project is going to be tracking, that Just SA will be tracking, and we'll be looking at, for instance, the number of enterprises that are involved in vocational training measures or labour market services, number of jobs created or secured, and the number of enterprises that have been supported in improving their competitiveness. As I said, Elise, this is not something that we're directly going to be working on as TIPS, but the other implementing partners, I think, will be more involved in those kinds of activities. So I think I'll leave it there, Elise.
Thanks, Jan. I really appreciate that. And I'll also encourage you with the GIZ and Green Cape or the other implementing parties, if there's value from this workshop, to also tie it into any SME focused work. So it's all about us building the ecosystem. But I think it's really great that the Just SA team is here today because, at the end of the day, first of all, we need a plan for South Africa, to transition, and that builds confidence with investors internationally usually. And when the money comes, then it does trickle down to the SME and also more on the green technology side. So very important work that you are doing is to have the plan for South Africa, and then also on the finance, really important. So we hope that your team will also gain value in our discussion today, because I believe very much that they're saying there's a study from the Boston Group a year or two ago. South Africa's just transition to net zero by 2050 could cost at least 6 trillion rand. So that's the funding scale that's really needed under the national determined contribution for the Paris Climate Agreement, where for the benefit of the rest of the participants today, we are all moving towards decarbonization, and it costs money at the end of the day. But we also want to get more certainty. What is the role of the SME? Is the SMEs at the heart of the transition, and how do they benefit economically, and how do we make sure nobody is left behind and included? So thanks for that, Ian. I'm quickly now going to ask the NBI team to also to introduce the initiative. So that will be our last presenter. I don't know if the DMRE is here, but Winnie, if you are back, you're very welcome. So Abigail, Notandu and Ordile from NBI, if any of you are able to just introduce yourselves and just let us know what you're focusing on. I've seen some really interesting app that they shared with me this week, lots of toolkits, lots of engagement. So we're so happy that you reached out to us. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Elise. Good morning to all representatives in the platform. My name is Notandu Mate. I am a project manager responsible for the township economy, which encompasses youth incubation as well as SMME development, which is an initiative of the NBI. I also have my colleague, Odi. I'm not sure whether Odi, you also you can do a brief introduction, and then I will also be looking for the presentation in the meantime.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us as well to this engaging platform. Exciting stuff happening in the green economy. So super excited. I think last year we had a presentation at the Grey Makers First talking about the green economy, and I had a slide there of Hulk and how bulky and green it was. So I think there's a type of aggression we need to show whenever we speak of green economy, just show that aggressiveness and that over eagerness of power. So my role at the NBI, I'm a project coordinator, specifically responsible for transition in TVET colleges to become more entrepreneurial. Thanks, colleagues.
Thank you, Odi, for that. I am always hesitant to present from the window setup of Teams because it usually keeps me up. So I hope this will be visible enough for you, colleagues. I will just be providing a brief overview of NBI and then zoom in to our IRM initiative, which stands for Installation, Repair and Maintenance Initiative, or the program. The NBI is a member-based company with over about 100 member-based companies. It was launched in 1995 by our former late president, Mr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. We have been in existence for about 28 years now. We work with our members to enhance their capacity and also call about collective action that will bring about change in South Africa and result in a resilient and sustainable South Africa. I'll quickly just take you through the units of the NBI. We have about 4 dedicated spheres: the environmental sustainability, which is the environmental team leading in climate change, and also they play a huge part in the COP initiative. And then we also have the social transformation unit, which plays a vital role in JC, the gender equity in workplaces. And then now we are zooming into the economic inclusion, where the IRM program is being implemented, where we are all about skills employability as well as enterprise acceleration and inclusion. And then another aspect of the NBI is institutional capacity, where we assist our government with skilled mentorship and development approaches that will strengthen their capacity. But I will quickly just zoom in to the IRM approach in the Just Transition Framework. The IRM approach seeks to build an inclusive skills base. It does this across all the 3 spheres, which is the unemployed youth that are turned into skills trained pool for our SMMEs. So just the highlights on the screen there, they focus on believing that SMMEs, artisanal SMMEs, they do play a great role in green economy, and there is room to bring about our SMMEs as the main job creators. And then also in the context of emerging technologies, we are also at the root of establishing township-based entrepreneurs, also for them to be included into the Just Transition Framework. And then I will zoom in onto how do we provide SMME opportunities, and how do we do our acceleration of SMMEs as potential job creators for these youth that we trained. And then also just to provide a detail into IRM jobs or function, which is solely the use of artisanal skills, which do install, repair, or maintain of buildings and infrastructures. And then the use of these skills is to produce and supply and have innovative products. Examples of the skills that we train in the youth will be welding, plumbing, carpenters, technicians, electricians, as well as our building and maintenance. And then also zooming into the space with now the Just Transition, which is more on green economy, we have also started to offer and transfer artisanal skills that will be able to detect and reduce utility consumption, where we do our solar PV installation trainings, as well as solar water heating, and as well as renewable energy workshop assistance. Just to provide an overview of the IRM strategy, that is till 2035. It is over a 15-year period. We seek to establish about 13 IRM township hubs. These will be at TVET College campuses. We have also been engaging colleges in terms of infrastructure. So when we offer the initiative, it is across different spheres. It is infrastructure development for these IRM hubs and strengthening their capacity, as well as also providing and strengthening the TVET local ecosystem as an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And then also our main component of the initiative is to increase the number of job opportunity creators in the local ecosystem, where we identify this growth-oriented entrepreneurs or SMMEs, and then we develop them and create pathways for them in the green economy. And then we do that by working with IRM township hubs that are located at TVET colleges. We also have a partnership with CEDA, because they are funding most of these TVET colleges township center for entrepreneurship and rapid incubators, which are more or less called CFERIs. So we fund the TVET colleges through the Skills Academy, where they offer skill set for unemployed youth. And then also in turn now, we are creating the job for this trained skill set to be placed within SMMEs, because we believe there's a huge potential of township-based SMMEs to have a space in the Just Transition. And then another aspect of the NBI is we work a lot with the ecosystem, where we are strengthening the capacity of these TVET colleges. And then our target, it is also to say that by year 2035, we want to have increased our IRM enterprises to about 5,000. Currently, we have a database of about 1,000 SMMEs that have benefited from our IRM enterprises. And then also we want to have at least trained about 30 young people in IRM jobs. Moving on to the next slide, and the IRM initiative is strategically aligned to numerous initiatives. We are reporting to the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, and then we also in the skills strategy for the Economic Recovery and Revitalization Plan. And then I've also mentioned that the initiative has 3 spheres, which is infrastructure development, as well as now providing skills for the green economy, and then also localization, where we want to also unlock supply chains for these SMMEs, because not only do we want to supply them with skilled employed pool, but we want to also enabling and create an enabling environment for them to be able to create these jobs. So we work hand in hand with the ecosystem to determine and unlock these supply chains where we embed it as part of the SMME program. And then I think we collaborate across numerous platforms, especially with regards to SMMEs, starting at the bottom of the chain where we have the SED, which is supporting the skills development, which is we train the youth and we train them to be skilled for the workforce. However, we also have numerous exit pathways because not only the workforce has capacity to absorb all of these trained youth, we also then have other exit pathways where we encourage them to go into entrepreneurship. So this is where we also roll out incubation for youth and startup businesses, working hand in hand with our TVET colleges. And then also as we move up the chain, this is where we accelerate existing enterprises, and we're creating a strong pool of local township-based IRM enterprises where we're providing enterprise development as well as technically upskilling through our township economy development program. And then ultimately we want to develop them to be able to now tap into supplier development value chains that located in numerous corporate supply chains. We all know that SMMEs face challenges in qualifying for this supplier development criteria as well as compliances. So at the root of the program, we now have built in all of those work packages for SMMEs. And then through envisioning the localized ecosystem, we have sort of mapped out on how does it all fit in together from the type of IRM skill set that the SMMEs require, and then we train based on that. So we provide demand-led training and through the skills in general property maintenance. So this could be any SMMEs that are currently have activities in this, SMMEs that are involved in plumbing and construction, in electronics, which are also then we create pathways in turning them into green businesses. So I think in the interest of time, I'll just zoom in into the main goal of the IRM program is to unlock demand for jobs across the entire IRM ecosystem through identifying these immediate jobs in the formal economy, and then in turn train for those type of skill sets that are required in the economy. And then in the long run, we want to turn these IRM SMMEs, especially located in townships, to be the job creators. And then also while we are enabling the local ecosystem to open up and unlock all these policies and work hand in hand and collaborate to form an SMME ecosystem. And zooming into the TVET colleges, we believe that TVET colleges are at the heart of the local economy, and they should be given a chance in building the township economy. So we do this by funding the township hubs, which are called TVET colleges, and then they will be mainly delivering on this initiative. They are accelerating existing IRM entrepreneurs. And then we also have different packages that we offer to these SMMEs, market linkages, labor, market intermediation, incubation of these IRM enterprises. I think just to zoom in onto offerings that are given to SMMEs, it is business development, support, mentorship, and coaching, because we all know that for an SMME to be successful, we need to be able to tap into all of those challenges and speak to those challenges when we are doing our initiatives. So part of the initiative, the acceleration initiative, we identify these growth-oriented SMMEs, we develop them, and then while developing them, we also determine what technical skills they are lacking in the green economy. So for instance, you would find that based on that cohort, they require solar PV. So we provide that, we fund that solar PV training, and then they will be trained and they receive their green cards. So now they are able to be compliant, they're able to be green businesses. And then just to zoom in on the hub locations where we currently are for the benefits of the SMMEs and the platform is that we have a presence across regions and provinces in Mpumalanga, working with Kletsibande College, Gauteng, working with Ekurhuleni West College, as well as Tshwane North College. And then also in Western Cape, we are working with West Coast College, Forceboy College, Northlink College, as well as now we have onboarded at South Cape College. So these SMMEs, they can be attached to a certain IRM hub for them to qualify for such benefits, and also to qualify for them to host these learners. And then I will also speak into how do we enable SMMEs to create these jobs. And then I think another important aspect of the initiative is how do we unlock the potential of these township enterprises. So these are the role that we can play as township hubs in providing a mechanism where our local entrepreneurs can strive, where we collaborate and work with enterprises, where we create a network for them. And I will also be talking into the Green Economy Toolkit that we have sort of launched as of November. And then I've touched on the hub services, but just to re-emphasize that at the hub, the SMME will be able to receive enterprise development support, where we create pathways for them through diagnosing what are their challenges. And then from there, we are able to deliver on those in the next 12 months. And where we are not able to provide that support, we work with the ecosystem to unlock these opportunities for SMMEs. And then I think another aspect at the hub level is that we have a makerspace, a workshop or a factory where SMMEs can come and deliver their services there, in terms of if they do not have a space. For instance, in embroidery, we have workshops in the hubs for that. For those that also do not have internet spaces, we have also done internet hubs at these TVET colleges. And then also another aspect of this is that you are able to be attached into a mentorship and coaching program, and then also to be closer to our corporate supply chains with those partners. To the Economic Rule Toolkit, how we came about with the Economic Rule Toolkit.
Sorry, Ntando, I'm so sorry to interrupt you there, but we're just running a little bit out of time.
Yes.
Would it be possible? I really appreciate these insights, because I can see that you are adding so much value to the ecosystem, and you're responding with the TVET colleges very strategically, especially youth and township entrepreneurs, which is really important. And we'd love to learn more about this. Would it be possible maybe for us just to distribute your rest of your slides to the room, because we
Yes.
have another speaker that's unfortunately also need to leave very soon. But we really appreciate all your insights, and I love the fact that the NBI is with this program very strategic. And you also mentioned CEDA, and the fact that you've reached out to us at TIPS and you want to collaborate, is amazing. And I hope that you'll also be engaging with SMME, so in terms of their back office support, that they take off the pressure from the admin, from the entrepreneur, and offering very good technology packages to make the business strong. So we really do appreciate that, and we look forward also with Abigail to engage much further. I'd like to now just give Nontandazo an opportunity, because we also want to hear from the entrepreneurs. I think we got this morning a really good understanding of the ecosystem, really bold initiatives, and supporting these entrepreneurs and fostering collaboration. But I want to also let us just hear about a story of Nontandazo, if she's from Porky Holdings. I hope that you're still with us, Porky Holdings, that you can just present who you are as an entrepreneur, maybe a little bit about your journey. I've got your presentation slide, and I'm happy to maybe just change the screen to share upon your request, and then I hand over to you to start with your introduction.
Okay, I would appreciate that, because my network is a bit down this side. Can you
Not
hear
a problem.
me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly, Nontandazo. Thank you. Maybe just start introducing yourself, and when I will quickly change our screen. Thank you very much for participating today, and for being an entrepreneur in the space, and to talk about who you are and what you're doing, and also a bit about your barriers. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. If you can see me. All right. My name is Nomthanda Zombande. Let me just stay off video, because I think you can't see me there. I'm from Porky Holdings, and also we've registered Porky Foundation, which is a social enterprise in general. So what we are a disabled-owned company, which offers professional services, project support, and green projects development. And especially our main key focus is empowering people with disabilities to start businesses. I'm an engineer registered with EXA and also a member of SAIEE, and I stay in, or I'm part of a couple of committees. And the reason I started being part of the committees was because we as business, as we wanted to include persons with disabilities in the industry, it was just a bit difficult. So now we sit at decision level so that we can be able to influence that. Each and every industry, like I'll make an example, I sit at the Maritime Decarbonization Committee. So when they're making decisions there, then I ensure that it is inclusive of persons with disabilities. And then our main focus is also on capacity building and ensuring that persons with disabilities are included. So we're looking at Gender 2030, which is inclusive of SDG 4, SDG 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I will focus on in this case on SDG 7. What I've also achieved, maybe just for you to understand, from 2018 we were the finalist of the ESCOM BIC competition, and in 2019 we had an opportunity to go and exhibit ourselves at WeBank in USA. Also nominated as the Global Woman Leader in 2021, and our key achievement was when our innovation was recognized as in the top 8 on the EDF 2021 in Africa. So with the experience that I have, I sit at We Connect International as advisory council, and I also have more than 20 years at corporate level in terms of my experience. Just also to go to the projects that we've been involved in, we focus on coaching and mentoring. Currently, we coaching persons with disabilities to integrate into the workspace, and also the businesses. Just to give you a background, before COVID, we had about 4 millionaires that we've developed in the space, but then with COVID happening, then people passed on because of COVID. So we having a challenge where now we have to work on sustainability of the businesses in terms of the entrepreneurs themselves being able to make those decisions and incorporate other people. And then another thing that I'm busy doing, what we are running an Africa Innovation Competition and an accelerator for the for one of the clients. So the idea is harvesting all the innovations in Africa, and they are either used by corporate or at least get exposure. One of the other flagship projects that we've worked on is waste processing, which is the first phase. The project currently is at validation stage, and it is funded and ready to operate probably by end of this year or early next year. And then the other thing we do, we sit as advisory, we provide advisory board services, which I sit in most key organizations that are in the energy space, also providing support to ensure that there is persons with disabilities. In the interim, what we've done, because we did business project development, we focused on energy efficiency assessments, which supports us to have cash flow, because most of the projects, although when you do a project plan, it takes about 5 years for you to sort of say you can, the project, like when you have a factory, it takes, to get the licenses, everything, it takes around 5 years because of also of the gap that we had during COVID. And we also look at support services in terms of solar. So we include, that includes our team that does installations. So that is how we stay afloat. Then looking at the challenges, mainly it's access to market. When we look at the requirements that are there, they don't fit us as small businesses. So if there's IRP 5, window 5, we don't qualify for that at all. So we've definitely made sure that we just stay within maintenance at this stage. And we hope that we will be able to bid in future. And then one of the things, technical skills development, all the programs that are there, they exclude people with disabilities. And it's also an opportunity. I've engaged ESITA, I've engaged a bit of CEDA, but at this stage, it's more of engaging and awareness, so that we make sure that government also includes persons with disabilities. And also, when you have, like when we won the innovation with EDF, which is Electricity de France, it's difficult to get a pilot, just to pilot the innovation as a small business. And it's also because of policy. And then also the issue is most of the municipalities and or entities like ESCOM are not able to buy back the excess energy from customers, which it's only Western Cape now that, or Cape Town, that is looking into it. Last year, I think they approved that. So we going to engage them robustly now and sort of pilot that side. And then the other challenge is digitalization. So with what we do, we need constant, reliable internet, which is what we're facing as a challenge for us to be able to measure and be able to sell back the excess energy that is generated. And then I must say also, from a government point of view, what they've done, at least they've given us opportunities to go on trade missions and also exhibit our company. And also there is also a fund for persons with disabilities, although it's not inclusive really of the green economy. But there is a fund. We can probably find a way to engage them to tweak it a bit so that it's inclusive. And then the other thing is it's more of from a I've managed to speak to the Department of Women and Youth and Persons with Disabilities, and I've noticed that they've started including more of persons with disabilities in their communication and at government level. And also the industries and also and the industry structures and committees are also not inclusive of persons with disabilities fully, but there are cases where they're doing something to include persons with disabilities. And then the last one, we are for sustainable energy for Africa. So in the first picture, it's where we were visiting with the potential funders, with the funders actually, and the city, a waste processing plant, and our project was is now under the auspices of the city, And also, it's the one that I said it's in the validation stage now. And also, when I talk about digitalization, we're looking at energy tracking with IoT, because when a person generates energy, then they should be able to see how much they're sending back to the municipality, not only through the meter, but if it's a smart mini smart grid, then they should be able to read and see how much they're producing as a community. That's all. Thank you. The last slide is just the team that supports me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your giving us a flavor of what you as a woman and people with disability-owned business are dealing with in terms of your challenges and also your activities. Congratulations for being so bold and taking on all these different initiatives and not waiting necessarily for the government or the environment to be perfect, but really just putting yourself out there, participating and really just also setting a pathway for other people with disabilities to be able to participate as SMMEs. So we're definitely going to be doing a bit of a case study more on Ntandazu's business journey as part of our work. But I'd like to now, we've also just to alert you with in terms of the process of the program, we have in the chat Sibongile, who's a youth-owned female entrepreneur. She's in or on the road at the moment, unfortunately not able to do a presentation, but it's quite important that I just read out her challenges. She's a qualified electrical engineer. She's got 8 years experience in the industry. She runs the MLPC projects and focuses on solar installation and maintenance services. And she's sharing with us 2 key challenges. Access to funding. She says the requirements for the funding is a challenge for their small business. And also to require a certain turnover to get the funding. So because she's at the back end as a youth-owned enterprise with not so much credit and leverage with assets to get access to commercial funding, you know, it's quite important that we also look at how we can better support youth entrepreneurs to participate if they've got clients and they need working capital to service those clients. And access to market, she's saying it's still a challenge for her to gain access, especially as a female and a youth-owned entrepreneur. She says there's often people hesitate to trust her because she's so young and to give her the opportunity to showcase her capabilities. So thank you, Sibongile, also for sharing that. I think these are really important things that we need to note down. So I'm going to now hand over to Dominic from our team, Dominic Ramos. He's been looking very closely at a number of business barriers that we've documented from a survey that we also ran last year for the Department of Small Business and about a bigger sample group of entrepreneurs. We will be digging deeper into these challenges, and because we not be going to have time today to do breakaway rooms and a whiteboard session, what I'm going to ask Dominic is just to explain to us what we've looked at as our key findings for green business barriers. And then I would like to ask everybody in the room, it's been a very long session, but we're going to make a plan to give you access to the whiteboard. And there's a few sticky notes that Dominic can explain in the end of his presentation. And we want to keep that whiteboard open, maybe for the rest of the week. When you have time, whatever stakeholder position you're holding, if you want to contribute with the sticky notes to add to the glaring issues that you're seeing from your perspective, it will add a lot of value for us to include all the voices and to make sure that we consolidate these into a report that's meaningful. We also want to extend the opportunity to all of you in the room to provide us with some solutions and recommendations that we can take up from a policy brief perspective, because it's about people and policy for us. You know, it's important that everybody in the room have a voice, that we can hear your constraints. If you are an incubator facing constraints, or youth owned, or people with disability owning ownership having constraints, it's important for us to flesh these out to make sure that we make provision within the policy recommendations for everybody in the ecosystem to be better supported within the just transition. So over to you, Dominic. Are you ready? Can I start your slide share?
Yes, I am ready.
Thank you. Let's jump in then. I'm
All right.
going to share my screen. Let's just give me 1 minute here. Make sure I've got your presentation. So Dominic has been absolutely fantastic to support us in the work in really digging a bit deeper into all the challenges that we've looked at different sources, and he can talk to this well of where we're gaining our insights. But I want to make everybody very much aware that we are very mindful that we are not just from tips saying this is what we find on desktop, but we are actually engaging in interviews and talking to entrepreneurs on the ground. Over to you, Dominique.
So I think to give a bit of background, when we did conceptualizing on engagement with entrepreneurs, especially when thinking of inclusion, we thought maybe we could identify the barriers first, primarily through a desktop review and then through this engagement, which I think has actually alluded to a lot of what we have discussed. And so within this, I would like to bring our attention to like 4 key areas where we have noticed SMMEs really struggle. These are barriers either in entry for entrepreneurs. These barriers are exemplified for youths and based on gender, as well as racial inequities. So the 4 areas that we looked at was the broader barriers. These are barriers that particularly pertain broadly to not just SMMEs, but are much more impactful on SMMEs. You could go down to the next slide to the broader barriers. So some of the key broader barriers that we looked at was more specifically things like red tape. Red tape is a key issue, especially as mentioned, where youth who come out of university or college or entrepreneurs don't necessarily have the skills to deal with doing reports, especially within the renewable energy. This works in combination with various other barriers, such as difficulty competing with larger businesses, complying with regulations, and quite a big issue that we've noticed throughout the business barrier survey is a lot of the entrepreneurs indicated there's a lack of support from government. Similarly, as mentioned previously, surrounding market access, there is also a limited track record and a bit distrust between the demand side for renewable energy specifically and supply, especially when we think of Black business ownership or female-owned businesses who have challenges, as was mentioned throughout the chat. And in doing so, we then dove a bit deeper. And in our findings, we actually identified 6 internal barriers that we would like to highlight to everyone that we find important, that we would like to address and receive a bit of feedback on. This is the initial goal of the workshop activities. And so for internal barriers, when we looked at the survey, alongside other literature sources such as SARM and the Market Intelligence Report from Green Cape, alongside a few quarterly reports released by our colleagues at SEDA, we noted that several key issues internally were based around complying to regulations, especially as small businesses begin to expand or upon entry. Their marketing capacity, being able to market their business throughout the communities where they operate. This has a general challenge, especially when you're competing with larger corporations. Then we have like internal operations. This is generally considered a lower barrier. However, internal operations kind of also depends on the capacity of the SMME, and many SMMEs struggle with internal operations, especially if they're just like a single upstart. It also depends on the community they're in. If, as mentioned in earlier, some communities are very far away with incubations, and that dissuades especially youth entrepreneurs. Finance and capital management is another barrier that we identified as an internal constraint, namely, if we think of how business establish their accounting, how they manage their books, pay salaries. And then two that I usually group up, but they are separate, is skilled labor, human resources, alongside research development and patent access. Oftentimes, research and development is centralized alongside patent applications, and these are usually centralized within varsity universities or large-scale academic institutions or large private corporations, which often leads to skilled labor flocking into those areas, leaving limited skilled labor for SMEs. In terms of external barriers, these are usually barriers that SMEs cannot directly affect, they cannot plan around or work around, which largely relates to, so a few of them relate to government. Unfortunately, throughout the survey, we noticed that a lot of them indicated that there's limited government support in some instances, alongside increasingly burdensome regulations. Regulations that large corporations can easily deal with, but small SMMEs are unable to. Then we have geopolitical and macroeconomic issues. Many of you would recall that these are issues that are even outside the control sometimes of the South African government. I always refer to the war in Ukraine, hiking up fertilizers and diesel, which SMEs often rely upon to offset things such as load shedding, and increasing the cost of that often acts as a barrier to entry or as a barrier to operation. It is also very difficult to access credit and get sustainable finance, namely due to a lack of a limited track record from a bank's perspective, especially when we look at large banks such as Standard Bank or Westbank. And lastly, especially when we look at the location of where SMEs operate in, there's a lack of demand side support. So when we think of logistics or external contractors, a good example I can think of is a friend of mine who operates a seed business within the Western Cape, is quite a distance away from the N1 and is thus unable to export their products throughout the rest of South Africa through the N1, as it is quite costly. So in identifying this, we decided to dig a bit deeper and see how severe are these barriers. And that's where we can look at external business barrier severity. So in terms of external business barriers, lack of government support and finance are cited as the two major external factors that limit SMMEs from developing, from becoming much more profitable, and also in some instances much more inclusive. Finance is especially important when it comes to inclusivity, as due to limited financial track record, youths do not have access to credit. Same with women and people, and based on racial inequity, so Black people specifically. In terms of government support, the biggest issue that we can identify there is government programs taking slow to be implemented and limited access to government funding. In terms of barriers that businesses can actually plan around and work around, internal barriers, the similar issue of financing, namely on how do you work around your finances, how is budgeting conducted, and of course, accessing labor force is a large one. However, a key one that I would like to point out is inadequate documentation and regulatory compliance in relation to resources and skill acquisition. Oftentimes, a lot of the operations that you need to undertake requires highly skilled labor, either from universities or TVET colleges, which is generally not available based on your location, especially when you're providing renewable energy within rural communities. You would not have the necessary skills, which means you often have to rely on lower skilled labor, and this is where it becomes a bit hazy when you have to document your order of operations. So those are the barriers that we have engaged with, and we have ranked them on a scale from 0 to 3. So I hope that through this we can give at least a bit of background on what we hope to engage you with. What are your personal experiences with these barriers, or are they? We have mentioned that a lot of these barriers have already been mentioned previously within this workshop, so it's good to see that we're at least a bit on track. But of course, digging in deeper, engagement with stakeholders is always very important. And that is my conclusion on our findings so far.
Thanks, Dominic. You did a really great job. We've got 20 minutes left, so maybe let's just dig into the breakaway groups still. I think it's useful, even if we have 20 minutes left, you know, we can do a 10-minute discussion on the barriers, and then maybe discussion around opportunities. So just to let you know, there is a whiteboard that we've prepared, and you know, if you have to leave, they're under pressure and want to kind of maybe later on contribute, we can make a plan after the meeting to also send you a link. But if you are able to still stay with us, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs also in the room, and you want to just make sure your voice are heard, put some key sticky notes down. So before we lose everybody, if there is people that's going to drop off, I would like to also just say thank you on behalf of TIPS. I will send out the email after this with my contact details, elise@tips.org.za, co.org.za, sorry, I'll put it in the chat, elise@tips.org.za, yes. And then if there's any questions or people that maybe feel that they inputs, we will make a lot of opportunities still available in the next few months, but please use the whiteboard session if you can to make sure that we capture your business barriers, even if you're from an incubator or from government. What is your barriers? We're all in one ecosystem, we coexist on this planet. And also then if there is people who's got some ideas and policy recommendations, we also want to end that off with a positive note. And when we come back at 12 o'clock into the main session again, I'll do a formal thank you and conclusion. Thank you.